So let's have a look at it. The first and the most obvious mode being land. Before moving on to this, let's make this thing clear. जो हमारे modes of transport है, there's this term in the book. These modes of transport can be either inter-regional or intra-regional, right? So what this means is ये जो हमारे पास modes है, ये सिर्फ एक रीजन के अंदर ऑपरेट नहीं करते, ये वेरियस रीजन को कनेक्ट कर सकता है. लाइक लेट्स से फॉर एग्जांपल लेट्स टेक अ कंट्री. तो एक कंट्री के अंदर तो ये सारे मोड्स चलते ही होंगे, राइट? सो देयर इज दिस ट्रांसपोर्टेशन दैट्स अकरिंग within the country, but then apart from that there's also transportation that occurs, you know, beyond the boundaries of that country. There's international trade going on, right? So there's going to be trade basically occurs in terms of shipment of goods. So there's going to be that. There's going to be international flights. There's going to be so we have this thing called transcontinental railways, but that's basically occurring within specific continents. So but anyway, जहाँ तक ट्रांसपोर्ट की बात है, ट्रांसपोर्ट जो है वो एक रीजन के अंदर तो होता ही है, उसके बाहर भी होता है. सो एंड these can come under either inter-regional transport or intra-regional transport, right? So our first one is land. अब land में हमारे पास land पे जो ट्रांसपोर्ट सिस्टम चलता है उसमें हमारे पास दो चीजें हैं, एक है रोडवेज एंड एक है रेलवेज. एंड हियर alongside these I've listed in what situations these these modes or these forms of transport are more useful or are more preferable than the others, right? This is kind of written in a very random way in the book, and I've just written them alongside each of the modes. So roadways की बात करते हैं तो roadways are cheap for short distances. Okay, so when we talk about roadways, we basically think about all the vehicles that travel on road. Like we have buses, like we have cars, like we have autos, rickshaws, and we have now we have the privilege of traveling in cabs, which has become very common. So all these things, all these vehicles, they operate on roads, right? So what this basically does is जब हमें short distances cover करने होते हैं, like जैसे हमें कॉलेज से घर आना है, घर से कॉलेज जाना है, स्कूल से घर आना है, घर से स्कूल जाना है. When we have distances which are as short as these, or we want to go to the supermarket, so we'll just take a bus, right? So for that purpose, we're not going to sit on a train and go to some faraway supermarket. So what it means is road transport is the best mode of transport when you want to have it cheap, and when you're going to travel for shorter distances. So there's also this another term in the book which says that roadways are very convenient means of door-to-door services. मतलब क्या कि जैसे कि if I want to travel by flight, so I'll have to check in 2 hours before into the airport, right? I can't just have a flight standing in front of my house, right? That's not possible. If I want to travel by train, I'm going to have to go to the railway station, and from there I'm going to have to board the train. But when it comes to roadway transportations, these provide us with door-to-door services. It gives us the comfort of like not having to travel such a distance and not having to spend my time going to the airport or to the railway station. So these are good for door-to-door services. So that's where the roadways happen to be the most preferred option when we want to travel for short distances, and when we want to do it in a cheap way, and when we want to have the comfort of being able to get up just right my house and being able to get down right in front of my house, right? So the roadway transport system does that. रेलवेज की हम बात करते हैं. रेलवेज कब ज्यादा प्रेफरेबल है? रेलवेज इज ऑल्सो अनदर फॉर्म ऑफ लैंड ट्रांसपोर्ट. रेलवेज की हम बात करते हैं. So these are good when you basically have to transport large volumes of cargo over long distances. Okay, so cargo is nothing but it's goods basically. It's freight. So when you want to transport large volumes of goods over long distances, that's when railways is your best option, because you cannot do it in any other way in such a because when you do it through railways, it also gets comparatively cheaper, and since you have to send it to long distances, so railways is the best option out here. So that's where we have the most important use of the railways, even though people also travel via railways, which is also a very important characteristics of the first three modes of transportation over here. Now these three, including these two within the land transport, they not only carry goods but also passengers, right? So they carry both goods and passengers, unlike the last one that we have, but we'll look at that in a moment. So railways is very, very helpful when we have to transport large volumes of cargo over long distances. The next mode of transport is water. Waterways, जब हम ship से travel करते हैं, या when there's a river and we travel by boat, so all these things come under waterways. And waterways कब हमारे सबसे ज़्यादा काम आते हैं? It is most useful when we talk about international trade, because जो भी trade international होता है, जो भी trade within the country होता है, that doesn't use ships, that doesn't use waterways, that uses railways, right? But जो भी international trade होता है, you cannot just, there's no train network that runs through, runs across countries. So there has to be some other way, which is this water transport system. So shipments are sent from one country to the other, carrying loads of cargo, right? So when we talk about international trade occurring through oceans, that's when waterways are the most preferred option. Moving on, the third one is airways. Airways is most preferred when we have to transport high value perishable goods. So when we have goods which are of very high value and which are going to not last for a long time, which won't last for a long time, which are perishable in nature, we can transport these via airways. Airways there's also another thing about the airways. Airways is also can be a preferred mode of transport when you have a hurry of getting from one place to another in a very short span of time. When you need to travel from one place to another in a very short span of time, you don't have much time, so you cannot travel, and it's a long distance, but you cannot travel by railways because it's going to take a long time. So that's when airways come to the rescue. So you have domestic flights, you have international flights. So like we discussed before, these are both intra and inter-regional. So that's another situation where airways prove to be very helpful. The fourth is pipelines. Okay, so pipelines को लेके थोड़ा confusion हो सकता है. Pipelines हम क्यों use करते हैं? Basically pipelines हम use करते हैं सिर्फ freight के लिए, right? So there's no passenger movement within pipelines. So like when we have to transport materials that are of gaseous nature, right? So like just for example, within pipelines, let's say when we have to transfer something that's of gaseous nature, so that's when we use pipelines, right? So that's when we most need pipelines, because it is going to be next to impossible to do it in any other way. So that's when we basically use pipelines. But the confusion sometimes that occurs is जब हमने land transport के बारे में बात किया तो sometimes people get confused and people think that pipeline should come within land transport, or pipeline is a form of land transport even though it only carries freight and not passengers, but still it's a type of land transport. But the thing is, pipelines can be situated across or underwater bodies too. It doesn't really, it doesn't need to be, spread through land only. It can also be spread across water bodies. So pipeline isn't necessarily a form of land transport. It's basically a completely separate mode of transport here. So and it's basically the last mode of transport that we have, the four of them being land, which embodies both roadways and railways, the second being water, which like we discussed is best for international trade, the third being airways, which is a which is a swift form of transport. It can really help you, it can really solve the transportation process in a very short span of time, right? So this form of transport gets the job done in a very short span of time. So when we have larger distances and very less time in hand, so that's when we can prefer the airways, and keep in mind that the top three of these are modes of transport that are used for carrying. So let me write this down. These are used for carrying both goods and passengers, right? So these carry both goods and passengers. It is only the fourth mode of transport, which is the pipeline, which is only used for carrying freight, or which is only used for carrying goods, right? So, and now that we know a little bit about all these modes of transport and why and in what situations they are used, there's also this one question that can come about, the significance of each, like what kind of a transport network would we prefer, and what are the things that we look at when we need to pick a particular form of transport, right? So मतलब किस सिचुएशन में हम कौन सा ट्रांसपोर्टेशन नेटवर्क यूज करते हैं, कौन सा हम ज्यादा प्रेफर करेंगे, these things, this is based on a few things, like the mode of transport available, right? So it depends, क्योंकि हमारे पास जब अगर हमारे पास लिमिटेड ऑप्शंस हुए तो हम उसी में से चूज करेंगे. We cannot really choose a mode of transport which doesn't even exist in our country, right? So our choice gets limited to the different modes of transportation that we have available in the region, right? The second being cost of transport. इसमें हम देखते हैं कि हमारा कौन सा ट्रांसपोर्टेशन फॉर्म ज्यादा कॉस्ट इफेक्टिव होगा, राइट? लाइक अगर इफ आई वांट टू स्पेंड if I want to spend less money, and if I want to transport large volumes of cargo, I'm basically going to go for the railways instead of the airways, right? Or instead of the waterways. Water we basically use only when it comes to international trade. So within the country we were basically going to go for railways. So we're basically going to look out for the one mode which is most cost effective, right? Which is most feasible for us to use, right? The third is the nature of goods and services. right? So we're going to be looking at the nature of goods and services. One very good example of this can be this, the one that we talked about last, the pipelines. तो हमने जैसे डिस्कस किया था कि जब हमें कोई ऐसी गैशियस नेचर वाली किसी चीज को ट्रांसपोर्ट करना रहता है, लाइक व्हेन वी वांट टू ट्रांसपोर्ट CNG, लेट्स से, सो what do? We use pipelines in that case, right? So it also depends upon the nature of the goods and services that need to be transported कि हम कौन सा वाला choose करेंगे. We're going to have to look at which one works best, which one is most, which transport mode is best suited for the specific good or service that needs to be transported, which happens to be most cost effective or most feasible for me, and which of these are really available to me, which of these can I really access to, right? So that's basically the introduction for the different modes of transport, and after this, in this chapter, we're going to be looking at all of these in very, very minute details, right? So that's all regarding the introduction part. This entire thing was basically the introduction for this chapter.